Today I'm going to be making an alignment chart that is visually going to display how much I like each character in terms of how fun I find them to play and how much I actually like the character themselves. Basically their personality and the way the character acts. The concept itself is very simple, so let's just get into it. In the middle here of this graph, there is a stack of the 69 currently playable characters in the game. Technically it's only 68, but I have Aether and Lumine separated here, so when I get to them, I'm just going to delete Lumine and let Aether represent the Traveler as a whole, the way Hoyoverse intended it. So now that I've pissed off at least about 50% of you, the entire Lumine fan base, let's see what I can do about getting that to 100%. Because if I've learned one thing, it's that Genshin players get relatively upset when you don't love the exact same character as them. And the Photoshop import has kindly decided that Diona is the first to go. When actually making this chart, I made the conscious decision to not name it hate and love, and instead just dislike and like, because they're a lot more tame, and people seem to think that hate is such a strong word. When you hate something, it's like you get visual disgust when you look at it. And you know what? That probably is a pretty accurate description of Diona. I have always hated this character. I can't stand her. I also cannot stand her playstyle. I acknowledge that she can be a very good character in the right scenario. That does not mean I like her though, so she can go in the very bottom left corner representing the least liked. Diluc can be a little bit grumpy, a little bit broody, and as Klee describes him, he's one of the weird adults. And while his moments with Kaya, where they bicker as siblings do, does make me like him a little bit more, it's not enough to outweigh the bad feelings I feel about his personality. Now Diluc's playstyle, on the other hand, that's where he really shines. With starting at a pretty good base and having a bunch of constellations that make him just a little bit more fun to play every time, it makes him a pretty fun character that still manages to feel unique even this far into the game. Dia is a character that many people were probably given a lot of opportunities to really be endeared to this character. She is a badass mercenary with a heart of gold, and I think that's the simplest way to describe her. And I think myself and a lot of people agree that makes her pretty likable. And as long as you can separate how she plays from the way her actual character is, I think you're bound to like Dia. In playstyle, on the other hand, well, that's a different story. Despite the public outrage, I still find her to be incredibly fun to play. I do genuinely like what she's trying to do, and I believe that in the future, Dia might be better. Maybe that is a bit of copium still. Cyno, the resident master of puns. I'm gonna tell you right now, if Cyno didn't have the pun thing, I probably wouldn't like his character as much. You ended up feeling just kind of like Desert Yalan, just going around threatening everybody and trying to be imposing, and I don't really like that very much. Puns, on the other hand, I love puns. And what makes puns great is when you have a character like Tighnari around to cringe in pain every time you make one. Playstyle, on the other hand, I can say a lot of nice things about Cyno, but I love his auto-attack playstyle with his spammy skill and extremely flashy visuals makes him one of the most fun characters to play for me. Cole is a character that's actually gotten quite an impressive amount of screen time for a 4-star, especially in events. I just don't feel the same way that a lot of people seem to feel about Cole. I understand why a lot of people love this character, she's just not really for me, so she's gonna hang out a little bit on the dislike side in terms of character. As for playstyle, I really liked her in the beginning when we only had a couple Dendro, but as time has gone on, I really just don't enjoy it. Chongyun straight up has not had enough memorable screen time for me to really feel anything about his character. I find the gimmick of him being an exorcist who just has such a strong positive aura that he literally does not get to do his job pretty funny, but I just don't get to see it play out enough for really to be a thing. As for how funny is, his burst is incredibly satisfying. Watching those swords come down and explode, oh, that never gets old. Candace also hasn't had a ton of screen time yet, but the few times she does actually show up, I find her to be an extremely likable character, and really for more or less the exact same reasons of Dia. Unfortunately, also just like Dia, they have very bad kits that the game just doesn't value right now in the current state of the meta. I hope that this changes one day for both of them, but right now having a parry is very fun, always one of my favorite mechanics, and having a quick swap playstyle where she causes bursts all the time is also incredibly satisfying. Bennett, aka the poster boy of the meta, at least at one point in time. While there are some that may not appreciate that his personality is more or less centered around being extremely unlucky, I find it to be pretty refreshing. Bennett is an incredibly positive character, no matter how many little bad things keep happening to him. Like the opposite of a League of Legends player, and while he himself may not be very fun, what he enables in my teams is incredibly fun. He does have a really cool skill though. And speaking of cool skills, we have Beto, the OG parry character, the only one that actually cast a perfect counter. And both this parry and her chain lightning are incredibly fun abilities to use. On top of that, she's a badass pirate. No matter how many times she wants to trade tactics with me, I will never grow tired of Beto. Ugh, Barbara. Barbara's so boring. She's an idol, whatever, I don't care. While I don't have as strong negative reactions about her as I do a character like Diona, I do find her incredibly boring, and that can be almost just as bad in a game like this. And in terms of playstyle, she's just a heal bot, not even one that I like using. Now, a healer that I do like using is Baiju. Baiju can heal the entire party with a single press of a skill. That makes him a very unique character. On top of that, he also is almost single-handedly for making me enjoy Cyno again, because his kit has a lot of problems that Baiju very uniquely solves. However, in terms of personality, yeah, there's not exactly much there for me to love, but I do love the Sneck. But that's not exactly him, now is it? Ayato. I gotta be honest, I don't really like this character that much. He's given me so few opportunities to really like his personality, and I really just end up kind of not liking it or just feeling neutral, but his playstyle I absolutely love. Even though he's basic as all hell, he's still one of my favorite characters to play. Ayako, on the other hand, if trashing on Lumine pissed off 50% of you, I'm about to take that number and almost double it. I'll start off by saying I genuinely like Ayako's playstyle. I like sprinting around with her special sprint and using her imbued charge attacks. The burst, yeah, not so much. I don't really like that aspect of her. Now it's time to piss some people off. I find Ayaka to be one of the most bland and boring characters in the entire game. She's like your quintessential, like, good church-going girl that, like, your parents want you to marry because they think she's nice and sweet, and she is, but that is all she is. I get it. She wants to see other culture. She wants to see the world, but so does everybody on Tinder. Look, I get it. I like vanilla ice cream, but it's not the only thing I want to eat. Amber, a very bright and bubbly character who I gotta say, like, I like that part of her personality, but before in the early game, there wasn't much that really made me like her. But once she started hanging around with Eula more, both of those characters became a lot more likable together. Playstyle, on the other hand, this is where I feel like Amber has failed, because there are aspects of her kit that can be really fun. Detonating Baron Bunny with a charge arrow through her constellations is a lot of fun. Her rain arrow could be a lot more fun, but its short duration really hinders how much I can actually enjoy it. Aloy. I have not played Horizon at all, so with that I really can't judge her personality because in my mind she literally has none. She probably does in the game, but in Genshin she's a block of wood. A block of wood that also happens to have a kit that looks like it should be really fun, but in reality it's kind of broken, barely works, and actually just kind of leaves you feeling sad. Alhaitham. Let me just get ahead of the comments right now. Yes, Alhaitham is an asshole. I know he's an asshole, you know he's an asshole, and all the Kaveh fans despise this man, but for some reason I really like Alhaitham. And while I can't explain why I like him and not a character like Diluc, I can explain that his playstyle is one of the most fun ones in the entire game. I love watching those mirrors just shred enemies to pieces. While Albedo may not be the most magnetic character on screen, not having an insanely bombastic personality like a character like Ito, or being incredibly funny like a character like Cyno, I still find myself absolutely adoring him anytime he shows up on screen. However, what I don't adore is his actual playstyle. Anytime Albedo's elevator kidnaps my Ito into the sky and forces him to either jump off or do a plunge attack instead of continuing with his charge attack, it makes me just a little bit more sad inside. And anytime I press his burst, that sadness amplifies tenfold. I use him because I have to, not because I want to. I could listen to Zhongli prattle on about his osmanthus wine for literally hours, and it's not just because of Keith Silverstein's angelic voice. He's always been my favorite of the Archons in terms of story and the way he actually acts. He knows so much, he has seen so much, and I want to know more of it. His shield may not come across as the most fun thing in the world, but what it allows me to do is pretty fun, but the long cast times do hinder his fun a little bit. Yunjin, this is another neutral character. I don't feel strongly about her personality either way, but what I can tell you is her playstyle is incredibly unique and fun. Again, parry, always a plus, but her burst, the way it interacts with auto attack scaling characters, makes her incredibly unique and always enjoyable to use when you can actually find a reason to use her. Yoimiya, our very first pew pew attack spamming character, and that is a playstyle as a old Ragnarok Online player I genuinely love. Do I even need to say or defend why I love Yoimiya's personality? She is a shining ray of sunshine, and she's like the best friend everybody wishes they could have. Admittedly, my enjoyment of her playstyle has gone down just a little bit as we've gotten other normal attack characters that are just kind of better. As many of you already know, I'm a big fan of Yelan. I'm a bit of a Yelan salesman in a world that is already sold on Yelan, but you can never be too sold on Yelan's kit. Now her personality, on the other hand, that's where I take issue. The very first event where we actually met Yelan and she was talking to people, I couldn't stand her. Every word out of her mouth felt like she was uttering the phrase like, oh, if I told you, I have to kill you. Like, it's so tropey, I can't stand it. And honestly, even though I find her to be the most fun character in the game, literally the most fun, I can't stand her personality in the slightest. We get it, Yelan, you're a badass. You want everyone to know you're a badass. But you know what? Dia, Candace, and Beto, they don't need to tell everyone that they're a badass. They just are. Yeah, barely enough screen time for me to feel literally anything about this character. I honestly probably just skipped things where she did have development, but her bursts can be pretty fun to watch the healing just go nuts and shoot up your character's health like crazy, but that's really all it is. Despite having a fair bit of screen time with Yanfei in the chasm, I don't really feel that positively about her character herself. Her kit, on the other hand, she was literally just like not clunky Klee. And as fun as her playstyle might be, I don't know, there's something missing with it. Hey, have I managed to not piss you off yet by trashing on both Lumine and Ayaka? Well, I'll prepare for this. I don't like Yai Miko either. I get it, she's a seductress pink-haired fox lady, and that to anime is what like explosions are to action movies. Her kit, on the other hand, with her offering a very unique playstyle that's more around like sentries or totems, that is a playstyle I thoroughly enjoy, so Yai Miko is really good for that. Xinyan's actually showed up in quite a few events, and in those events, she's pretty likable. Her playstyle, on the other hand, absolutely miserable. The split scaling is a nightmare, and everything just feels like it barely works. Xingqiu is the meta character that people don't hate on like Bennett, probably because he's just really fun. Like, how can you not love watching those water swords just fly around? What I don't love is hearing this kid just ramble on about books all the time. Sometimes the game also tries to make you feel like he's a badass, and no, I'm not believing it. I don't care what you show him do. Now, Xiao, on the other hand, despite being a whole of 3 feet tall, he is a badass. He may be a little bit traumatized, but come on. I love seeing Xiao at events. Like, he's always cool things happen around Xiao, okay? Except for his playstyle. I used to love it, but the pogo stick really just, god damn, knocking back enemies with it just feels terrible. It's not completely unbearable, but it's also not great. I think everybody goes through a phase where Pyronado is incredibly fun to use, but of all the support abilities, Pyronado somehow seems to lose its luster the fastest. Probably in part due to just how much of an energy glutton Xiangling can actually be. If you don't funnel into her or build a ton of energy regeneration, she's probably gonna feel pretty bad. And she's also a cook. Wander, on the other hand, this snarky smartass, I can't help but like his character, especially when you go into his voice lines and read all of the other voice lines about the Harbingers. He just shits on them all one by one. As for his playstyle, one of the most fun things. I never thought we'd get a character that could just fly around. Sure, it's limited and it may not be like what everyone dreamt Flight would be like in Genshin, but it's pretty damn good. Venti's carefree, laid-back attitude, I think, makes him a very easy character to like to at least a certain degree. Some people may not like that he's a drunk, you know, like Zhongli, and summoning a black hole that just sucks in every enemy in a large radius is still extremely satisfying. As for Lumine down here, I said I would get rid of her, and she's gone. No need to thank me in the comments. You're welcome. Luckily for the Traveler, they have a whole bunch of elements at their disposal. Unlucky for the Traveler, they're all boring as shit. Electro MC is boring as shit, Animo CC just kidnaps enemies until they're way too far away, and Geo MC just summons rocks. I don't find any of those particularly interesting on their own. Oh yeah, I forgot about Dendro MC. It exists. As for the personality aspect, there's not much I really like about them. I mean, like, they're 99% a blank slate, and I don't really like silent protagonists. Tighnari, on the other hand, I like quite a bit. Granted, it's because of Sino. Every great pun needs a Tighnari around to cringe in pain when it's made. Otherwise, it's not as fun when everybody likes the pun. And while Tighnari may share some similar gameplay elements to Ganyu that a lot of people hate, I think a lot of people genuinely like just how active Tighnari's playstyle is, with the rapid fire charge shots and shoot lots of homing projectiles. Toma, the resident house husband, lover of animals, that's all you need. He's a good guy. He likes animals. He takes care of animals. That's like the best trait you can have. He is just a genuinely lovable character. His playstyle, on the other hand, while he does have a very potent shield, like Zhongli, it's not as potent, and it doesn't allow me to do quite as much as Zhongli's does. He also doesn't even have a meteor, and that's a big con for Toma. Old Tartaggles, you know what? Liking and being related to Tusser is quite the big character flaw that a lot of people might not be able to overlook, but I try not to fault him for who he's related to. You know, he's trying to be a good brother to Tusser, even though I wish he wouldn't. On one hand, it makes him kind of an absolute saint among people. I mean, like, who else is gonna put up with that little shit? You know, ideally, you can just forget him somewhere someday, like maybe leave him in Fontaine or like in the chasm. Actually, no, the chasm's great. Don't ruin it with him. Maybe wood chipper. Generally, I do really like these characters that have like an addiction for fighting and getting stronger, you know, like Kenpachi from Bleach. And Child's no different. Oh, Sucrose. Oh, that event where she was collecting Breaths of Joy was so weird. Like, Sucrose is a very nice, kind character. She has some funny moments without Beto, but that, oh my god, that made her look like a serial killer. As for her abilities, I can't stand them. A CC that blows enemies out? Nope. Raiden Shogun is a character I would have liked so much more if they actually kept her as a villain, or at best, like, a character with their own motives that we just don't really get or understand or can get behind. I understand we saw different versions of her, but the way she is now, the way she acts in events, Raiden Shogun is not a character I actually enjoy to see on screen. In terms of actually playing her, once upon a time she was one of the most fun characters in the game. Admittedly, her raw damage playstyle has really fallen out of favor for not only a lot of people, but me, myself especially. It's not something I really enjoy doing as much anymore. That being said, Dendro really saved her in that she's applies Dendro so well. Pair her with a unit like Tighnari and she's a blast to play even still. Kuki, another character that was made fun because of Dendro, but the only difference is Kuki's isn't quite the same as Raiden's. Raiden's allows you to apply Electro with any attack, where Kuki you still have to stand near them, and that really does hinder how much fun you can actually have with her kit by quite a bit. That and her ultimate, or her burst, is barely worth casting. Now the character herself, on the other hand, as a member of the Arataki gang, that automatically puts her in a ton of fun situations, like when she gets to call Ito an idiot in the recent TCG event. But I mean, come on, Ito only lost because his backs were whack. Now Shenhe, I wish we would stop trying to make Shenhe a better person. Like, oh no, she wants to resort to extreme violence every once in a while to settle small disputes. Like, what's so wrong with that? That's what makes her fun. She's quirky. It really does make her quite the enjoyable character, kind of like her kit. Buffing cryo characters up to unreasonable levels. I just can't wait to see what more cryo characters we get that makes her even better. Sayu was a character I actually relatively enjoyed in the past, but honestly, as time has gone on, I do kind of like her a little bit less and less, and I find the things that actually make her kind of unique, they kind of wear on me a little bit. And even though I used to enjoy her rolling, now I can't stand doing it because I have Yulan, and Yulan is like just way better at it. Kujosara is a very serious character. She's serious in almost every situation except in maybe that event where they had like the Raiden Shogun dolls, and that was like one funny situation she was in. Any other time, I don't really enjoy seeing her on screen at all. I'd say it's more than made up for by having an incredibly fun kit. I mean, even if it was just her burst, watching that thing absolutely shred large targets is so satisfying. Funny thing about Rosaria is I can barely remember anything about her. I remember I like her, but I can't tell you why. I do know that the second her workday is done, she's like, peace out, I'm gone. And you know what? I respect that. In terms of her kit, she has the potential to be an extremely fun character, but there's something I don't really like playing about her. Obviously, her skill can be a little bit wonky with certain enemies, and her burst is, it's okay. It's nothing crazy, but I do enjoy it. Razor, being a feral child who wasn't raised in civilization, obviously makes him a very funny character in pretty much any situation you put him in. For me, that makes him an incredibly likable character because I like the funnier characters, the weird ones, they're more entertaining. As for his playstyle, I used to love Razor because his attack speed is incredibly high and I actually like auto attack playstyles. Obviously, we've just gotten way better options and physical isn't in the best place overall. I would even say that Sino just kind of does what Razor wants to do, but better. Okay, Chi-Chi, you know what I'm gonna say. I certainly don't like her playstyle. Just like Barbara, she's just a heal bot. But the main difference of Barbara is I genuinely love Chi-Chi's character. She's hilarious, she's likable, there's really nothing bad I can say about her. I obviously don't like her as much as like some of the other characters, but she's very high up there. Noelle was actually one of the first characters I really invested in. I accidentally got Cleo on her banner just trying to C6 Noelle. I genuinely loved this character's playstyle. Granted, now that we have other characters like Ito, I do enjoy her significantly less because we just have better options. Noelle is incredibly driven and hardworking, and that does make her likable to a certain degree, but she's not a character I absolutely love. Ningguang is a character, it's a weird one. In some ways, I like Ningguang, but in a lot of ways, I don't. And much like a lot of the characters I put here on like the left side of the spectrum, they're just characters that in most situations, I'd rather not see them in events. But like I said, at the same time, I do kind of like her character, and her playstyle is incredibly fun when it works. That's just the problem. Sometimes it doesn't feel great. Nilou is a bit of a weird one because in a lot of ways, I view her like Sumeru Ayaka. She could be kind of a plain character that's just not the most interesting. But at the same same time, she did have an incredible passion for the arts and defended them in the face of the bullshit academia. But at the end of the day, she is still a little bit on the boring side, except in terms of playstyle. While she herself may not do a lot, her blooms do. And I find that fact that she just outright changes a reaction to a new one in a way is incredibly interesting. Nahida had probably my favorite arc on Quest so far. I thought it had a really interesting story leading up to it and actually freeing her and seeing Nahida become more accepted, I guess, by her people. Bottom line is right now Nahida hasn't done enough to make me actually love the character. I would like to see more of her events to see if maybe more of her personality can shine through. In terms of gameplay, what she enables is incredibly fun. Granted, she doesn't have a burst that's very impactful and her skill just kind of does its own thing. Mona is a character that has certainly had some cool moments. Way back at the very beginning of the game with the first event that Scaramouche was in, she saved our lives. Her domain was amazing in the second Golden Apple Archipelago, but that being said, I'm never too happy to see Mona in events. She's just not a character I really typically like. I mean, as this chart develops, you can see the kind of characters I typically gravitate towards, and Mona just doesn't fit in. Playstyle, on the other hand, I love alternate sprints. I don't care how many people hate them. I think they're great. Her burst is a unique kind of debuff, and her skill, it's okay, that's not great. And her C6 and all that, DPS mode is cool. Mika has barely had any screen time, so like, I don't really know how to feel about him, but I can tell you he gives me like whiny anime protagonist vibes, and dear God, if that is not one of my most hated archetypes, I could be wrong about that, but you know, he might be a sweet boy, but he's not my cup of tea. And his attack speed steroid is. I love attack speed buffs, and Mika's got one of the best ones in the entire game. Unfortunately, that's really all I have to say about his kit. The idea behind the skill and like the hell targeting is kind of cool, but it's not exactly the most fun thing. Lisa is a character that could have been really fun. I mean, her skill, I like the idea. You charge up a really powerful attack, it gets better, and then what? Like, its reward isn't worth the amount of time it actually takes to do it anymore. It barely was at the beginning of the game. Her burst is okay. It's just a turret that applies electro around things. And then you go to personality. Lisa is just another like seductress type character that I don't really care for. I can appreciate the aspects about her, about like how calm and collected she is and she's intelligent, but it's like the whole like seductress calling you cutie thing. That's the part that really drags her down. Layla's a relatively simple character. She's got the funny little gimmick of always being so sleep deprived that she's sleepwalking everywhere, and she has the alternate personality that manifests itself while she's sleepwalking, and that stuff is mildly entertaining. It is a little bit of a gimmick and it may get a little tiresome as it goes on, but right now I do enjoy Layla a little bit, except when I'm playing her, because I don't enjoy playing Layla at all. Just like Kokomi, I don't enjoy this character, but much like Albedo, I feel like I'm kind of forced to use her. Like, I like what they did with her, that they made her so she can't crit unless you overinvest pointlessly, but I don't like the character's kit. I hate being confined to the circle with the jellyfish. I hate that you can't replace it like Oz, and the burst is just some emergency healing that I really don't want to do unless I have to. Personality-wise, I'm going to be honest. Kokomi's story quest is really what burned me on this character. She's so long-winded, she didn't really do much in the story, not as much as I felt she could have, and that left a bad taste in my mouth. I don't like Kokomi, I don't like seeing her events, I not look forward to whenever she's around. Unlike Klee, who is literally one of the most fun characters in this entire cast. Every time she's in an event, it's fun. Unfortunately for Klee, it's not all sunshine and rainbows, because her playstyle is a little bit of a drag. While I can enjoy its complexity of doing like the Klee auto attack spamming like the machine gun style, it does feel clunky. Her burst, it's so long to cast and it disappears when you go off field. A lot of it just, it's kind of a drag. On to another one that's gonna piss people off, Kirara. People love this character. She exploded in popularity right at the gate, and we know why. It's because she's a cat girl, and people love cat girls, but not me. That part doesn't do it for me, but much like characters like Yoimiya and Klee, I can see that she seems to be a very happy, bubbly person, and like Amber. So she'll probably rise on my list over time, unlike in gameplay, because I don't like her. She's just a shield to me, that's it. I guess the burst is like, okay. Let me say this about Kaching. I hate workaholics. It's one thing if you keep it to yourself, but in things like Kaching's idols, she does not come across that way. Kaching to me will always be my obnoxious McDonald's manager that was a monstrous workaholic and made everyone's lives around them miserable by calling them lazy, telling them to work harder, do better, all that shit that I just despise. She can show up in as much events as she wants and try to seem like, oh, she's getting better, she's learning to relax. So did my boss on holidays. He'd be nice on like Christmas Day. Next day he's back to being an asshole. I'll never like Kaching. She's ruined any chance of that ever happening. But I do like her playstyle. Every single aspect of her kit is satisfying to use. Sure, the charge attack may spend a lot of stamina, and even though it may knock enemies back once in a while, and that can be a little bit of a pain in the ass, it's still really fun. And she had her moment where she did not feel good because of how weak she was, but Dendro basically completely fixed that. Kazuha, he's a very chill character. I mean, like, can you really dislike Kazuha? I mean, like, I don't love him. He's not one of my favorite characters in terms of personality, but in terms of playstyle, absolutely. Even though his CC may not be anywhere near as good as Venti's, I find it way more satisfying to use, mostly because just how much you control it. It's exactly where your character is standing, and it's very easily accessible. Kaveh, everyone's favorite Disney princess. Animals love him, people love him, and scam artists love him because he's kind of a gullible idiot. He's not exactly an idiot, but Kaveh is an idealist. He thinks the best in everybody. He wants the best outcome for everybody. He is a damn good guy, and every event they put him in just makes people love him even more, and understandably so. But I do wish Kaveh just had a little bit of healthy skepticism because the man really needs it. And much like Nilou, he decided to do something a little bit unique with a reaction. Now, he doesn't change it like Nilou does, but the way he interacts with it is very special, and that does make him stand out among most other characters. Problem is a lot of the time I'm playing Kaveh, I feel like I'm just kind of sitting around waiting for stuff to happen. And while that's not exactly a problem, Kaveh's still good, it does impact how I feel while playing him, and it does make me enjoy him quite a bit less. Many people think that Kaya is a sketchy character. They think his motivations are questionable, they don't like him, they don't trust him. These are all the things that make me like Kaya. And even though he is a starter character with a relatively basic kit, that doesn't stop it from being fun. Sure, the skill is probably one of the most boring in the entire game, but his burst ends up being extremely fun. It's just a shame that some of its best aspects are locked behind constellations that are rather hard to get. Jean, I don't know a lot to say about Jean. Her best moments are when she's scolding Klee, or really anything to do with Klee. She is carried by Klee. Without her, I'm so neutral about her. I used to have a massive love for her burst because it was one of the best ways to just instantly heal your entire party up really quickly. Her skill knocks enemies back, and that is really unfortunate because that's not very fun to do, and her constellations, they do stuff. Ito, you know damn right, he's going right up to the top right. Polar opposite of Diona, best character in the game. While I may no longer consider him the funnest character in the game, having been dethroned by Yelan by a fair margin, I still love the shit out of playing Ito, and everyone knows that he's the cheat code to events. Put Ito in event, and everyone's gonna love it. It's going to be a fun event. And please, Hoyoverse, let Sino and him interact in a TCG event. Hu Tao is the most popular character in all of Genshin Impact for a good reason, and if you doubt that, you shouldn't, because it's pretty obvious. Having an overzealous funeral director is a hilarious combination that not many people would have ever expected. Whether she's putting on promotions to basically encourage death around her, or try to sell people on 2-for-1 coffins, it's always a funny time when Hu Tao's around. And even though I may not enjoy her as much as I once did with her charge attack spamming playstyle, I do still really enjoy playing Hu Tao, even if she kind of just is like a delivery device for using my Yelan even more than I already do. Much like Ito, I just think we can never see too much Hu Tao. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea, but she's fantastic. When Hazel was first teased to us, he was one of the most exciting characters. Finally, a character that could punch and kick, and while the Animo element is not exactly the most exciting delivery for that, Hazel is still a lot of fun to use. I will say though, if his kit was on a 5-star with a little bit more of that 5-star flair to it, he would probably be my favorite character in the game. But being a 4-star does mean he's a little bit weaker, and that makes it a little bit less exciting. Hazo is another character that is a victim of very little screen time. I know he has a hangout, and I have seen some of it, not all of it, but even in that hangout, I feel he's just very bland. Like, for now, I feel very neutral about Hazo, just literally like nothing. He needs more time. Goro to me is an Ito artifact. That's all he is. Like, sure, he's like Bennett in that he buffs characters, but unlike Bennett, he's not actually buffing that many characters. I use him with my Ito, and that's only because I really have to. Like, don't get me wrong, I enjoy what he does for my Ito. He makes my Ito a lot stronger and can even help out the survivability if he needs to. And as for personality, I just find Goro a little bit boring. I don't even want to say neutral because, again, like, I just get bored anytime he's on screen. Maybe it's just because of the proximity to Kokomi and the whole Inazuma story as a whole. I wasn't a fan. Ganyu is how you make a workaholic that I don't completely hate. Look, she doesn't shove it down other people's throats like Kaching does. Now she is arguably even more self-destructive than Kaching. Ganyu overworks herself to the point where she's like falling asleep everywhere, and that kind of sucks. But what entirely saves her from just being a kind of boring workaholic character is her moments with Cloud Retainer. Whenever she gets embarrassed of childhood stories, that's what makes me like Ganyu. Like, I do like the character, but only if Cloud Retainer's present. Now, playstyle, on the other hand, a lot of people hate Ganyu. Sometimes I feel like I'm one of like the 5% of people who actually enjoy it, but I really do like it. The freedom of not having to worry about auto aim and being able to shoot her AoE shots exactly where I want them is something that continues to be satisfying even to this day. Fischl is quite the eccentric character, and it's for that reason that she could be relatively polarizing. People can find her to be a little bit too much, they can find her tiring to be around, and I completely get it. When people say they don't like Fischl, I have no problem understanding why. You know, unlike when someone says they don't like Itto, which is a red flag. What really saves Fischl is the Oz dynamic. Oz makes the character, not only in just personality, but gameplay. I mean, like, the whole thing about her being fun is Oz. Her skill is Oz. Her burst is another Oz, and that's fun. Now, what's not fine is Farazan. The love for this character absolutely confuses me. I find her to be so unlikable. Every time she's trying to shove like how superior she is to you, how much older she is, how much wiser she is, and like even moments where she tries to appear to be nice, I just feel like she's just doing it to make herself look better as a person. As for her kit, kind of like Albedo, like she does wonderful things for my Wanderer, and that is a part I love about it. But the problem is if I had an alternative, I would jump to it because I hate using Farazan. Literally the only thing I like about her is that she makes my Wanderer stronger. That's it. Eula is a little bit of a funny one because once upon a time she would have snap gone right down with Diona almost. I hated her when she was all like vengeance will be mine. It was annoying. Luckily they almost turned it into a meme, like she says it ironically, and her time with Amber has made her way more tolerable as a character. And even though I was incredibly excited for her way back when she came out, her kit sounded really good, but in practice it does not feel nearly as good as you would think it would on paper. Now obviously that's not going to apply to everybody. Some of you are going to pick her up and love her. Me, not so much. Her gameplay, absolutely miserable. But like I said, for her personality, she's come such a long way. Like she is one of the most improved characters from when we initially met her. Because at that point, she was one of my least favorite personalities in the entire game. But every event she gets, and I feel like she gets a little bit better, even if she's still a killjoy sometimes. Time for the most hated character in all of Genshin Impact on the last one. Kind of a funny way to start. Diona, my most hated character to begin with, and Dori just happens to be at the bottom. Everybody else's most hated character, but I actually love Dori. I really like the fact that she's a scrappy hustler and just like a good salesman, even if a little bit of a sketchy one. She's entertaining, she's a breath of fresh air in the cast of otherwise really goody two-shoes characters. We don't have a lot of these kind of characters, so when they do show up, I take notice of them and I like them. In terms of her playstyle, Dori, I wanted her to be fun. Her auto attacks, especially with the infusion on the C6, looked like they would be a lot of fun, and I thought maybe the Dendro reactions could carry them. Turns out I was a little bit wrong. Dori is a little bit more disappointing than that. Her auto attacks are slow because of her claymore, and they get interrupted a lot because she has no interruption resistance. And as much as I would love to enjoy playing her, the fact is I just don't. Okay, now that I can see the full list here, I can start to make some adjustments because, you know, when I can see them, I can be like, yeah, I don't like this character less than this other one. Lisa, for example. I like her way more than Xingqiu, even if I don't exactly appreciate what she's doing. And now that I also think about it, I like Mika, I think, a fair bit less than Lisa. I mean, like I said, he gives off those like whiny anime male protagonist vibes, and like, who likes those kind of characters? So I'm just gonna, yeah, down there feels probably about appropriate. And on second thought, I don't really feel that neutral about Ayato. I've always kind of hated that he's a little bit of like a snooty rich kid, you know? And he doesn't like Itto. I mean, like, come on. Like I told you, not liking Itto, that is one hell of a red flag. So he can hang out down there next to the other rich kid. I also don't think I would put Sayu in the negative. She feels a little bit more neutral, and yeah, I think I could bump Eula up maybe a little bit. Put her in line with those, just like barely on the dislike side. I think I also got to give some credit to her playstyle because I do like the auto attack aspect. It's actually the burst I don't like. I don't like how long it takes to go off. It lost its luster very quickly. Chi-Chi definitely needs to touch the bottom here. She is the rock bottom of boring characters. I would also say I like Xiao a little bit more than this, but you know, he's still not like super top. It's a goddamn crime that I didn't put Yoimiya like way over to the right, like right away. Same with Toma. I think he deserves to be up with the rest of those. A lot of pyro characters up there. Sino definitely way up there, but the times where he's serious does take away from him a little bit. He needs even more puns than he already has. I definitely also like Dia a lot more than this. I get not her kit. That's right where it needs to be. But her character, though, her character is phenomenal. So yeah, this is it. This looks pretty good right here. Like nothing else I see that stands out as weird. I know I definitely pissed a lot of you off, but that's the thing. We all like different things. You might love Ayaka, and that's totally fine. She's not a bad character. She's just not for me, you know? I'm glad you like her, and I'm glad she exists for you to like, but we don't all have to like the same things. So, you know, maybe make one of these. Share them to your friends and piss them off with your opinions because, hey, what else is the internet for? So thank you to my members, my patrons for supporting me as always. Thank you to you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.
Attaboy!